Okay, welcome back, Anderson, and welcome back, Trent. Okay, we got two back. Okay, welcome back, Malachi, and welcome back, Tanas. Alrighty. Okay, so I think there's one more. Okay, so we have what we call the complex conjugate. The conjugate is basically the same numbers. The only difference is the sign. One is plus and the other one's a minus in between them, or one's a minus and the other one's a plus. So whenever you have complex conjugates together, they form, that should be a minus in between there. Should be a squared minus b squared. Well, depending on, but anyways. So let's look at this for a minute. Okay, so here's the board. And so if we have a complex number and we want the conjugate. Okay, now let's say we have a complex number such as 3 plus 2i. The conjugate would be 3 minus 2i. So the only thing that's changed is the sign. Okay. Now let's say we had 6 minus 3i. Well, the conjugate would be 6 plus 3i. The only thing that's changed is the middle sign. Well, let's say we had a negative 5 minus 1i. Okay, the conjugate to that would be negative 5 plus 1i. So again, the only thing that changes is the middle sign. The first sign does not change. Okay, so that's the complex conjugate. Complex number and then just the opposite sign in the middle. Okay, any questions with that? Okay, so we use the conjugate to simplify complex expressions. Now the denominator is not simplified completely when the denominator has a complex number. So we want to get rid of that complex number in the denominator. So what we have to do here is we have to multiply the conjugate to whatever the denominator is. So write answers in standard form. So we've got 3 plus 2i over 5 minus 1i. Okay, so here's our board or our sheet. Okay, so what we want to do here is we don't like to have, I see Busty's trying to come in, I'll get him in a minute. So we need a complex conjugate for the denominator because it's not in standard form for a complex number to be in the denominator. So we want the conjugate to 5 minus 1i. So that's going to be 5 plus 1i. But we can't just write that. We have to write anything over itself is 1. So we have to write 5 plus 1i over 5 plus 1i, because anything over itself, except for 0 over 0, is 1. Okay, let me let Bussy in here. Okay, so Christian, welcome to the class. Mark you down here. Christian, where are you? Bussy. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm going to mark it as late, but you made it. Okay. All right, so now what we do is we FOIL the numerator and FOIL the denominator. Okay. So we're going to start with the numerator. 3 times 5, well, what's 3 times 5? 3 times 5 is 15, right? And then, so we multiply the two first terms. Now we multiply the two outer terms, right? 3 times I is plus 3i. And then we multiply the two inner terms. 2i times 5, well, 2 times 5 is 10, so 2i times 5 is 10i. And then 2i times I is 2. I times I is I squared. Questions there? All right, so now we've got to do the denominator. So now we're going to multiply the two first terms. 5 times 5 is 25. Put that in the denominator for the other one. And then the two outer terms, 5 times 1i is plus 5i. And then we multiply the two inner terms. Negative I times 5 is a negative 5i. And then the two last terms. Negative I times I is a negative I squared. Okay, questions with that? So now we've got to simplify this, right? We need to combine like terms in the numerator. So that's going to be 15. Bring the 15 down. 3i plus 10i. Well, 3 plus 10. Well, 3 plus 10 is 13. So 3i plus 10i is 13i. Plus 2. And what do we do with that I squared? We said we got to change I squared to what?
-1.
-1. Very good. Okay, so that's the numerator. Now we look at the denominator. Bring that 25 down. And what happens to the 5i's? We got a positive 5i and a negative 5i.
Cancel out.
They cancel, right? They go to 0. We don't put 0, we just drop them. Minus, and then the I squared changes to a -1 again, right? But this is where people tend to have some issues, is that this minus is the minus for the equation. This minus is the minus for the I squared. So there's two negatives. So you got to have them both. So negative times negative, the negatives become a positive, right? So actually, I'm just going to rewrite that. So that'll become 15 plus 13i, and then 2 times -1, that becomes a -2, right? And so this would be 25 plus 1, right? Okay, questions? Okay, so we change places with the -2 and the 13i, right? Because we got to get the real numbers together. So that'll be 15 minus 2 plus 13i. Again, we didn't have an added or subtracted. All we've done is just change places. 25 plus 1, we can go ahead and make that a 26. All right, 15 minus 2 is 13 plus 13i over 26. Questions so far? Okay, now here we can simplify this. Now we can't cancel here or here. Why we cannot cancel 13 and 26? 13 times 2 is 26, right? But why can we not cancel the 13 and the 26? What's stopping us? Why can we do this? 13 times 13i over 26. Why can we do this? But why can we not do it 13 plus 13i over 26? Why can we not do it here? That is a no-no. What is the difference between these two? There's one little bit of difference. What would that be?
You're adding.
Yeah, the plus. The plus, that's the only difference. So you can do one. The textbooks like to tell you to factor, but there's an easier way. You can split it. You can say 13 over 26 plus 13i over 26. You can split it. Now this is division and this is division, and now you can cancel. Okay, just like 1/2 plus 1/2 is 2/2, which is 1, right? When you're adding, right, you're combining. Well, here you're splitting because with the same denominator. So 13 can go into 26 2 times. 13 goes into itself once. And we can do the same thing with the other one. So we end up with 1/2 because we got a 1 in the numerator, 2 in the denominator. So you have to have a 1 in the numerator, 2 in the denominator, plus 1 in the numerator, I, 2. Okay. Now the I can be in the numerator, it can be off to the side like this. It just cannot be down in the denominator. It can't be down here. I call that a lazy I. Okay, and that's your answer, simplified. Okay? Questions there. Alrighty. So it keeps going, and then it shows you can simplify that, and they simplified it. And then what they did is they took it and checked it, took this answer, multiplied it with one of the numbers, and you should get the other one. All right. Here, having I in the denominator, this is imaginary, right? But again, we cannot have I in the denominator. Well, this is not a complex, it's just imaginary, right? So this is the other slide. Okay, so this is our slide, right? 3 over I. We don't want that I in the denominator. We got to get rid of that. So what we can do here is we can multiply the I times itself. But we can't just multiply I, but we can multiply I over I, because anything over itself except for 0 over 0 is 1. So now we can say 3 times I is 3i. I times I is I squared. And again, I squared is what? -1, right? So positive divided by negative is a negative 3i. Negative 3i. And that's our answer. Negative 3i is our answer. Okay? Questions there. Negative 3i is the answer. Okay, so we're getting kind of short on time, so I want to finish this up. So you can either write it as negative 3i as imaginary, or you can write it as 0 minus 3i. Okay, either way is acceptable. Any questions with that? Okay, that concludes our lesson for today. Now remember, there's no class Wednesday. So I'm in a conference Tuesday and Wednesday. So there's no class Wednesday, so you're going to work on the QEP essay. And if you submit it by Thursday, I'll take a look at it and let you know if there's anything else you can do to improve on it. And so you can get a better grade. All right. Okay, so any questions with this lesson or what's happening this week? If there's no questions, then that concludes our lesson for today. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thank you.